All right, welcome back online again. As we said before, we took a little break. For some reason, the water in this area of DC is not working. I have my thoughts on maybe, and we a water main break. We talk about data security and privacy all the time. When you go messing with other nations, cyber warfare and attacking your main energy supplies may actually be something in the future. But thankfully, this is not that. Allegedly, it's a water main break. But we're going to continue. We have a dynamic panel, and they are going. I'm gonna get out the way, and they're gonna take it over.
My name is Kiara Ortiz. I am co-founder of Legally Black, which is a nonprofit educational organization aimed at bridging the gap between intellectual property resources and communities of color. I'm also an associate at Covington and Burling, where I am in the Technology and Communications Regulation Practice Group. I just joined Covington last June, and before that I was at the Federal Communications Commission for a little over 4 years. I'm going to let the rest of the panelists introduce themselves a little bit, but I wanted to just give a little bit of a preview of our panel and sort of what we were thinking about for our discussion today. I know that there was another panel on AI earlier. I wasn't here, so if we're being a little repetitive, just ignore us. It's a hot topic right now. But as you all know, AI is reshaping how organizations operate and manage risk, and it presents real opportunity, honestly, and to work more efficiently and strategically, but it also raises some fundamental legal and ethical questions that sort of forces us to rethink about the concepts of confidentiality and privilege and cybersecurity issues. And as we just saw a few weeks ago in United States v. Hepner, the Southern District of New York held that a defendant's conversations with a public generative AI tool about defense strategy were not protected by attorney-client privilege or work product doctrine. And so even though that's such a narrow decision, but the implications of that case just show how quickly AI use can become a legal problem without guardrails. And so I'm going to shut up for a little bit and allow the panelists to introduce themselves and talk about their backgrounds. We're missing two, which we're sad. Megan had a conflict, and so did Julian. But we're girl power over here, so we'll have a lot to say and talk about. So we can either start down there or start over here.
Sure. Hi, I'm Adani Washington, Howard Law, class of 2020. I'm currently a privacy and data policy manager at Meta. Prior to that, I was in nonprofit world. I was at the Future of Privacy Forum, and then before that, I started my career at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, where I was on their Digital Justice Initiative. Oh, sorry. And I'm a former awardee from this conference.
Nice. And where are you now?
And I'm at Meta now.
So hi, Lauren Pruitt. I am a 2009 Howard grad, Section 2. I will go in reverse. So I actually started my career in-house at an AI company. So I have been in AI the entirety of the time that I've been practicing. So I went to a startup that was a client of my firm, got asked to join. They had figured out how to use natural language processing to automatically read medical records. And from there, got acquired by 3M. I ended up staying with them for 5 years to support what became kind of their AI division, and then went to Danone, which is the parent company for Dannon Yogurt, and now I am senior counsel for U.S., some global commercial, and sustainability at the Hershey Company.
She brought the chocolates.
And I brought the chocolates.
And I am Maddie Neustadt. I am not a Howard grad, but I keep trying to get Charlie to adopt me, so he lets me come.
We've adopted you. It's happened.
I've been in-house for almost 20 years now, and was a supply chain quality engineer with a background in semiconductors before that. Went to law school at night at Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon. And I recently, as about over a year ago now, started with a technical co-founder, a legal tech company that provides basically a ServiceNow ticketing platform for in-house legal counsel. with the sole goal to arrange in-house work in the order that's necessary to meet their clients' top priorities within the business. So really get the lawyers in-house to focus on the client needs and deliver low-cost, fast, and good advice, because cheap advice fast doesn't do you any good if it's bad.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, I think the first question I want to ask all of you guys is, when we talk about safe AI use, what does that actually mean? And what's the most common way organizations unintentionally create AI risk?
I have an excellent answer for this, because as part of the startup, I vibe coded an app. Now, I have a technical background, but it was never in software. And so I vibe coded part of our things. And then vibe code means you don't know what you're doing, and you ask an AI to do it for you, and then you trust the process. So you log into a coding platform like Lovable or Cursor, and you say, I want an app that does X, and it writes the code for you. And then if you can figure out how to run that code locally or deploy it onto the internet, which it'll tell you how to do too, you've created an app. You can put it up on the App Store. You can sell it for 99 cents a piece and become a billionaire. You can also, as OpenClaw did, expose every single one of your usernames and passwords for every account you have, because you tried to vibe code an agent to do your email and banking for you. Now, when I vibe coded the app, I have a technical co-founder who's got a background like me in cybersecurity. And so before I did anything, I was like, all right, check my work. And he was like, great app, works great. It's completely insecure. You put all your secrets in the front end. Anybody could come in here and blow open our entire platform. Let me fix that for you. So that's a big way that a lot of people are using AI right now. There's a lot of tech bros foaming at the mouth to try to replace lawyers with agents. And they're not paying attention to a lot of the stuff like security and privilege. I think we had a slide too. I don't know what happened to the slides. But one of the things that we talk to a lot of people about is, like, as a lawyer, when you use AI, your foundation is your ethical obligation. So if you're using AI, you got to start with that foundation of ethics. And to me, that's the biggest risk that lawyers have using AI, is making sure that they follow the rules of ethics when they do that.
Definitely. I think there's two things that I see. One is, the biggest risk to me is the speed that companies try to adopt AI. It is not user-friendly, nor is it intuitive, nor is it intelligent, which people miss, right? So AI is math, that's all it is. And there is a misconception that math can learn faster, do better, or understand nuance better than a human can. So I watch a lot of organizations that I've been in, and companies and divisions, as they try to roll out AI as a productivity tool, move too fast, not understanding that if you haven't trained your math to do math well, garbage in is garbage out, bad data in is bad data out. So you can have dumb AI, and people don't realize that. Like, you can have AI that has no idea what it's doing. You can have AI that makes stuff up, so hallucinations happen, and wrong information is cranked out. And I have seen people write whole legal memos with AI, and they were entirely wrong. And they were lawyers. And I was like, how did you get it wrong? So that, I think, the speed with which companies are trying to adopt AI, not fully understanding what it does, how to make it work, and how to train your workforce to be able to use it effectively, is the biggest risk that then creates all of the problems that Maddie is talking about. So that's how I am usually trying to patchwork.
And Lauren, you made me think of something Mr. Cosby said earlier today, talking about blockchain, and how blockchain was this immutable ledger. It's immutable. It's truly math, where math always, 1 + 1 always equals 2. AI is non-deterministic. 1 + 1 might equal 2. It might equal 5. It might equal pumpkin. You really, non-determinative means you never get the same answer twice from AI. So when you think of different technology capabilities, it's really important to remember that AI is not a repeatable process.
I think the thing that both of you have kind of highlighted, and I'll just say verbatim, is it's the unknown, right? The thing that is kind of out there as we talk about AI, and I'm talking in my personal capacity and not on behalf of my organization, of course, the boilerplate. But I say that to say, there's so much that we don't fully know. We don't know what the output's going to be. We don't know exactly how it's going to impact productivity. We don't know what that means for our jobs. We don't know what that means for other people's jobs at the company. We also don't know how this is going to continue to evolve. So, for example, it could start with, utilizing one model and then utilizing 10 or 5 or 6, and it could change so rapidly that also is an unknown. So how we think about AI is going to continue to evolve, but that unknown piece, I think, is where the unsafe aspect comes in. I think when I think about what safe uses of AI and how at least I begin to think about, okay, is this use safe, is going to be kind of thinking about what data goes into it and what data I'm putting in about myself or about my company or about whatever the problem or issue at hand is, and then of course the garbage in, garbage out. And so if I put in good or private or secret information, I have to recognize that some of the output is also going to probably contain more sensitive information, and then what do I do with that? And then the cybersecurity risks, I will not delve into that world, but that is all here in the background.
Yeah, no, all good points. And I think the uncertainty is definitely it's huge, but at the same time, I think a lot of corporations, and even from the law firm perspective, I'm also speaking on my personal capacity, we're being asked to use these tools, and a lot of the AI policies are focused on the productivity piece of it, but not so much on like the legal aspects of it. And so all of you guys have either are in-house or have been in-house at some point. What guardrails have you guys actually seen work in practice, and what should these AI policies explicitly address when AI is used in specifically legal matters?
So to me, it's like the most successful model I've seen is when everybody aligns on the value set that underlines why we are using AI, the purpose for which we are using AI, the things we're not going to use AI to do. There has to be a fundamental underlying value alignment, because it can be destructive. And I think that's what we see in society at large right now is AI can do wonderful things when put to good use. And I think it is an absolutely fantastic productivity tool. Me and my AI get a ton of stuff done, right? Yeah. I encourage all of you to adopt it. In my private life, I prefer Claude. We use Copilot at Hershey and any number of things in between. And I actively use those tools every day. Try to give my colleagues tips if there are tips that I find are helpful. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think mankind in general has a morality gap right now. And so you're seeing these tools that can be very powerful and do great things when put to positive use. But if you give it to the wrong person, it's not. It can be very destructive, right? So that value set to me is the most important place to start if you are in charge of or trying to oversee or manage the compliance aspect of AI use in-house.
And part of that value set, to even determine it, I think one of the things that I regularly think about is how do I use it in my personal life? Do I actually understand what is being asked, or do I actually understand how this can bring value to me before we even determine as like a company this is going to be a productive thing? So it does matter how I'm using it in my personal life. It does matter that I know the difference between which model does what, or how maybe I can, or I guess my personal biggest dilemma is how do I ask AI to do what I want it to do in a way that's I'm not talking to a machine, right? Like that is part of it for me, because I grew up talking to Google and just asking Google my questions. Putting that into AI is not going to produce the same sort of result you might expect it to. So I think part of it is also having the understanding finding where the tools meet you. Right, so how do I understand and use this in my personal life, and then taking that into the corporate space and understanding, okay, here's the value set that we've aligned on as a company for what we want these tools to do, be it productivity or help us get to an output, vibe coding, whatever that looks like, and really understanding, okay, within this set of tools, how does it meet me where I am? Right, so maybe I don't jump straight into vibe coding if that is something that is offered, because up until very recently, I just thought that genuinely meant vibes. I was like, I don't know what that means. And so I was like, vibes, yeah, sure. And so understanding that, in the tools that are provided or in the offerings that, the company provides me, where can I meet myself, what I know, and my skill set when using AI. So that is kind of a piece of the value set.
And I know when I was the last corporate client that I was a regular employee of, I get the benefit of, I get to speak for my companies. I own them. They like,
Yes, ma'am.
I can say whatever I want, and the company says that. But when I was back, when I was a regular W-2 employee, last company, I was actually overseas in Norway, right when the EU AI Act came out, and they're like, we need an AI policy. And the engineers were like, we need to just be able to do whatever we want. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm still from legal. That the answer to that is, can you do whatever you want? No. But we wanted to, what we found was really successful, tell them what they can do. People want to use it, but they also want to do the right thing for the most part. So tell them what tools they can use and how they can use them and even expected to use them. And then if there are things that are completely no-go, tell them what they can't use it for. And then bring some way of having new things evaluated. Because then you have to keep on top of what technology is right for what purpose, what problem are you trying to solve. You can't just throw AI at everything and expect it to solve it. If you want to know what time a restaurant opens, ask Google, because that's deterministic. You can always get the same answer. Google's going to go find the restaurant webpage, get the number off of it. You ask ChatGPT, it's going to look at every restaurant ever possibly named something like that and find out what the average of opening times are. It's not going to help you. I mean, it may. There's a probability function in there. But if you want certainty, you have to go to a search engine. If you want, summarization, then you've got these AI tools. And then I still operate a little solo practice law firm to keep the lights on while I try to make the software company successful. If I want to do legal research, I just found out that Google Scholar has a new AI tool built into Google Scholar. And let me tell you, I don't know how LexisNexis wants $15,000 a month for a single subscription when Google Scholar will give you the same thing referencing only the Google Scholar documentation. It's a great tool. Don't throw client confidences in there because it's still Google. But you can ask a question of law, and then you can go IRAC the heck out of that once you know your legal rules, reference to real citable cases that you can shepherdize using Google Scholar. But that's the type of thing where you know what tool you're using and what problem you're trying to solve. If you start with a solution and just think ChatGPT or Claude is the solution to everything, you probably won't come up with the right solutions because you haven't figured out what your problem was first.
And you also have to shape it to you. That's the biggest thing. So my shout out to Copilot at the end of the year when we're doing our performance evaluations and my bosses asked me, for a summary. I was like, I know what I did, but it was a great test case for Copilot. So I was like, Copilot, tell me how I did this year. And it came back and I was like, stop. You guys, so it was a really good test case, right? Because I could feed all of the data that I have every day, all the stuff that I do. I had it run through everything that I had done on my entire SharePoint, OneDrive, all of it, my Outlook, everything, and give me a synopsis of my performance for the year. And then I've been using that. It was really.
But also a good reminder that Microsoft Copilot is part of the enterprise program at Microsoft. It runs inside your security boundary.
Right.
It's not throwing that information out into the open web or training, training Anthropic or ChatGPT on that information. So again, you got to know your tools.
Yes. So in that context, when it's secure and it's within our environment, and I know it's going to be just crawling the stuff that's relevant to me, and all the things. What I liked was it gave me a 360 view of myself because it could also touch other people's reactions to me throughout the year. So I got this 360 view of, no, Lauren, you did awesome. You know what I mean? And that was really nice. So that's a use case, but you're in a closed environment and you're tailoring it to yourself. So be aware as you're asking and using these tools, not only do you want to understand what your purpose is and what your value set is and what you're not going to do, you also need to recognize that there's a learning curve that it has to have in order to give you the output that you need. So,
yeah, no, all good points. Maddie, I'm curious to know, since you have your solo practice on the side and you're running this company, how do you determine what risks should be handled from like the engineering perspective or from the legal perspective, if that makes sense.
Well, in my law practice, it's straightforward. I'm just practicing law. I give legal advice. I mostly specialize in data breach support.
Okay.
So referral stuff, and it comes in, and I got to run some forensics. And that's buttoned up per the rules of ethics and engagement letters and what the practice of law looks like. In the company, I get to be my own in-house counsel too, so I at least have the ability to write my own contracts. We have a patent on our prioritization technology. I worked with an actual patent attorney to do that. I didn't try to DIY that. But in a small business like that, you're always making trade-offs. I remember somebody telling me once, but you're comparing apples to oranges. And I'm like, I just got a fruit budget. Like I don't have an apple budget, an orange budget, a potato budget, a meat budget. I got one budget for food, and I just have to deal with it. So you do take more risks. We never take risks with customer information. We build inside the customer security boundary. It took us longer to get to market because of that. But my CTO is a background in cybersecurity as well. But we set our core values as the number one value is we are client-focused legal tech, and we are out to protect our customers. And so if that's our core value, that's where we start. The technology goes from there. So we might not develop as fast as other people. We might not have the innovation schedule. We might not have the latest and greatest. But for us, it's more important to stick to that number one value, that our customer security and the client confidentiality of the data they deal with is more important than bells and whistles.
The next question I want to ask is, it would be great if Megan was here, but since you guys are all working in this space, how has it been navigating the fact that we don't have a uniform federal AI regulation, and now that EU has a more robust regulatory framework, how has it been sort of like navigating that from either the in-house perspective or from running a software company?
Yes.
I know or even just the fact that like we have so many different state laws in different industries, and it's a mess. It's a patchwork effect, and it's a mess.
Yes. So I'm not on the legal team at Meta. I specifically sit in the policy space, so this is quite often a day-to-day conversation. It becomes really difficult, even as like the company is trying to evaluate what does that mean for internal use. So California has started to delve into what companies can and can't do with AI and what that looks like. Some of the other state patchwork legislation focuses on company use and how employees can use AI. So there's that world, and then you do delve into the broader how everyone is kind of trying to regulate AI in the US and even other countries. I think some of it goes back to the unknown. Some of it also goes back to, we've talked about kind of safer uses, but some of it goes back to the speed. Everyone was trying to use AI first and fastest and have the best. And we saw all those court cases where, lawyers had submitted briefs that they used AI and did not fact check. And there were, hallucinations in there and incorrect citations. And so all of that has led to regulator scrutiny and interest in trying to understand what companies are doing, what people are doing, how this is actually going to have a longer term impact on not only the economy, but like the workforce in general. And so it's really difficult to understand, as an individual, as a company, and with interest in either side, how AI can actually be utilized and what that looks like. I think what we try to mostly do at this point is be as forward-looking as possible. How do we kind of insulate ourselves from whatever the next big AI wave is going to be? Is the focus going to be on the data that's coming in and being used? Is the focus going to be on outputs? We'd see in the last couple of administrations, the focus was really on the outputs and the harms and the discrimination. We've now kind of shifted that, right? And so now we're trying to understand, okay, this administration does want to be more innovative, but how are we now ensuring that we're providing accurate outputs or accurate and viable solutions in the AI space? So it is a mess, and I don't know that it's going to get better. This is my universal, regular, mandatory plug for a federal privacy law.
Yes.
That will solve a lot of this. I don't necessarily think an AI law.
Yes,
I think
the privacy
just the
law.
privacy
Agreed.
law
Yeah.
would help us
A
get
lot.
get further. And then of course just the difficulty in trying to comply with different regulations and legislations. It's fascinating if you're someone who finds this sort of thing fascinating, but to look at just the slight differences between laws that are fairly similar from state to state. Oftentimes you'll see very similar sort of AI focused legislation, but you'll notice other states have different interests. So if you can kind of understand what states have particular interests in what area, again, like California had the employment kind of focus, then you kind of can understand, okay, these states may be more concerned about this, and other states might be more concerned about other issues. But it really is just a constant sort of issue spotting practice.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's like, I think the other thing that I was cautioned, all of this is going to converge. So the idea that you would have an AI, a data privacy practice, all of it comes together, right? Because it's all data driven at the end of the day. So I think what I like about Hershey is we see that. So I sit in this very, what would appear to not be connected at all, right? I have our commercial like advertising and marketing teams, and I've got sustainability. But at the core of that is this very concentric, like extremely overlapping use of data that drives both how we market and how we do good things in the world, right? But it's the same core corpus of data that I'm now trying to figure out, okay, so in this context, it's under these laws for this use, and in this context, it's under these laws for the, and then AI just adds this more complex use case to the mix. So I would encourage any young attorney coming out and all of you who are thinking about your careers to think about them in terms of you being a data attorney, because that's really where I think that the practice of law is going in general. Like, you're going to have to be a data specialist at some point and navigate how to compliantly use data in different use cases and different scenarios. That's my plan.
And I would go back to what you said earlier too about having an AI policy that was built on values. And I've worked with companies all from the size of 1 and 2 people all the way up to several 100,000 people globally, and starting mostly on advising on things like cybersecurity law, privacy compliance, digital regulatory compliance, and having to manage 50 states, couple territories, all of the EU, the member states of it, throw in the Nordics, which aren't part of the EU, and like you couldn't do it as a check the box compliance effort. You had to find the underlying values and build from the values. And it's the only way to run a major multinational, that you're operating in all of these jurisdictions, but it's also the only way to scale a small company. Like my company right now is really small, but I do not want to be small forever. I want to scale it. So I have to start with those base values and build on that. Eventually you have to get some compliance, check the box, because you'll get regulators staring at you, and you need to have the evidence, and you need to know what evidence matters the most. But if you're starting a practice that is advising small companies all the way up to major companies, and you don't know where to start with the values. Start with the OECD AI values, the OECD privacy values, and build up from that.
And what is OECD?
Oh, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Glad I got that out.
That's good. That
Yes.
was good.
I was like, and they have both published AI principles as well as privacy principles, and the GDPR and most of the EU enforcement is built on those privacy principles. The EU AI Act is heavily influenced by the AI principles, and if you've operated in global legal compliance for a while, you've probably heard of something called the Brussels effect, where laws in Brussels, the European Commission now is really the global leader in technology regulation. All sorts of policy arguments as to whether or not that's helping or hurting the European economy, but they are the leader in it, and the world follows. So,
For sure. And OECD, what I like about them is they stretch beyond just tech, right? So OECD is also the organization that sets the human rights standards that most companies globally will follow and align sustainability practices to. So you've got this holistic looking view of the world that comes out of them that I think they just do a great job of connecting all of the dots. Because, like I said, to me, it's all converging around data at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I want to make sure that, if we have questions, you guys can ask. We definitely wanted this to be more of a conversation, so, go ahead.
I just wanted to get the perspectives of like the various experiences that you guys had when it comes to AI and, training the associates who are on your team. How does that look like for your organization? And on top of that, I kind of had something related to discovery in terms of like where you think clients should be thinking about when it comes to AI being discoverable, like retention policies and, whether they should be required to like provide their prompting, as well as, some tools allow you to see what the AI is thinking, others don't, and that being like discoverable as well. So
yes, so it's funny. So the answer is twofold. In-house, in training our department, our organization has done a great job of just giving us like just an abundance of training tools, right? So we can go in, we take all the classes, co-pilots for dummies, all the things, right? So like you can start there just as a way of understanding how to use the technology. We have then our own like literal legal group chat where we give each other tips on the prompts that we think work, don't work, how we think we are using it well, where we think it's got problems. So it's like a constant feedback cycle, and I find that to be really helpful, just in terms of our own training. For outside counsel, you guys are a different beast, because I know a lot of you use Harvey, and so there's been a few instances where I've gotten some stuff and I've been like, so Harvey, I see you've consulted him, and I would like for you to check that again, right? So I think the important thing if you're in-house to me is when you're checking your outside counsel, it's a great learning opportunity. I'm all about younger associates getting a chance to talk to clients, and I know it's like this heart-stopping moment for all of you, but I'm just like, look, I want to know who's working on my stuff, so we might as well just all get on the call together. But I'm all about like, let me give you the feedback in real time so that you understand where I think you've got some holes in your internal tools, and where I think I've got some exposure because of those holes, and let's bridge that gap. So that's how I like to work with both internal and outside counsel, and just like training on AI use.
I will say, can't speak specifically to how to train necessarily associates, but I do know that we similarly have many, and we are encouraged to have regular conversations about what works for our team versus what works for other teams. And a lot of that is understanding, we have like clear guidelines for, we can use Manus here, we can use Gemini here, we can use our internal tool here, and here's where you can't. So we have those internal guidelines. Part of it becomes there's actually almost too much information sometimes. Mm-hmm. So what really helps me is understanding who I work closely with, that we have similar work styles. And so having those regular conversations like, hey, have you done X, or have you tried Y, and how did it go for you, is really what kind of bolsters my understanding. Sometimes it can also help to talk to people that maybe you don't work with all the time, and understanding, hey, have you had a different experience? Have you prompted in this way? Or have you found that it hallucinates all the time when we type in this? And sometimes that is really helpful for understanding where it goes wrong, so that you can hopefully get to those holes before maybe you turn something into someone above you. So it just kind of depends. We are also encouraged to, like I mentioned, use it in our free time to try and get much more native with it. Mm-hmm. I think the last thing that I'll add is, in my own capacity, I do not claim to be AI native, but oftentimes I set aside maybe like 10 minutes of my day to just do something that I'm like, I don't know if this will work. I do not know if this is how this works, but let's try this out. Let's see if it can put together this presentation for me, or try out this slide, something that doesn't necessarily have a consequence, but helps me understand within my own kind of learning realm what the bounds are of the tools that we do have. So just give yourself like 5-10 minutes a day and just kind of play around with it if that applies for your circumstance.
Yeah, and oh no.
And I've like my firm is small. I have really small clients at the firm. A few bigger ones that will come in occasionally on referral, and when I was in house, I did a lot of training on privilege. And in-house privilege is very different from law firm outside counsel privilege. And then it even varies more when you consider the U.S. versus Europe. Privilege is very different in Europe as well. The one thing that everybody needs to know, though, is that your clients are going to use AI. And if they are doing risky stuff that could put you at risk for a lawsuit, they should be advised as to what's going to happen if they put that into AI in terms of getting, quote, business advice versus legal advice, even if they bring it to a lawyer. As the judge in the Hepner case says, there's no alchemy that turns bad information into privilege because you've handed it to a lawyer. So like my firm, my engagement letter now tells clients that I use AI in certain ways, and it reminds them not to use AI in adversarial actions without talking to me first. Because I will give them written instructions on things they can do for AI. I had a data breach client recently, had a very unsophisticated IT department. I think it was somebody's cousin. And I said, we recommend these security controls. Go ask AI how to implement them on your Google subscription. You don't need to pay me my rates to go do your IT work for you. I'm a very expensive IT worker. But you can go ask Google Gemini, because it's Google, and you run Google Workspaces, how to set up your workspace to do these things. So, but that's me directing them now as their attorney. So just kind of keep those, always keep in mind that your clients are going to use it, sometimes in non-compliance with corporate policy. So if you do in-house privilege training, or if you even have a new client and you have an engagement letter with the rules of privilege in there, or you're advising on a litigation matter, like I have friends who work in personal injury, they always tell their clients, don't talk to anybody about this. Like you're suing somebody now, you don't discuss this with anybody outside of me. Can't discuss an ongoing investigation. And that is because it breaks privilege. And now you got to say, don't discuss this with anyone, and that includes ChatGPT. So just keep that privilege stuff in mind.
Oh, the other call out is open source. Good Lord. Open source is like the landmine that is just sitting waiting to explode all over everything. So open source software underlies pretty much every language model that is in commercial use right now. And in its inception, the guy who created the most restrictive of the licenses was like the most anti-Microsoft person you could ever meet in your life. Like, he hated Microsoft. Linus hates Microsoft. So like, he wrote these licenses. He he is the guy who wrote Linux and published it. So Linux, in its inception, Linux is the operating system that underlies all things Apple. He created an open source version of it, and part of like the tenet and the spirit of Linux is that it is available for anybody to use. If you utilize it, you have to make it public. And he wrote the world's most restrictive set of licenses around Linux. A lot of those libraries got incorporated into what is now ChatGPT, OpenAI, the language models that are in wide use now. So if you look at OpenAI's actual licenses, there is a disclaimer that says there may be some licenses in here that this is subject to that would require that you make public anything that you use this software to create. And that, I think, is the biggest risk that companies are unaware that they are facing as they adopt AI models. So if you are...
They are lucky that there are tools that can scan.
Yes,
So there's, I think Black Duck is the big one.
Yeah.
So if you're advising software developers using OpenAI or vibe coding stuff, you got to run these scans to figure out how much open source you have to comply with.
Like, run the scans. So we had a team that wanted to do something that was pretty sensitive. Came to me, it was great. I make sure we have this open line of communication. I was really happy they did. It took 3 phone calls with the vendor for me to get on the phone with their chief data scientist to say, give me the list of your libraries because I'm positive you got open source in here. And they did. Like, we could not use the tool because it would have resulted in us having to disclose some of our most confidential and sensitive information. So call out, red flag, open source. Please scan for open source. So.
Did you get a promotion for?
You would think, right?
That
You would think.
that saving the company's high should be, you know.
You would think. No, I did get a thank you, but that was about it. That
You
was
got the
about
big
it.
Hershey kiss?
I got the giant Hershey kiss. That was about it. But no, it was a good learning experience for me. What was great and what came out of it is, for me, I'm all about building trust with my stakeholders, like my business partners and I want them to feel like it's a safe space. I want you to come to me so we don't make these mistakes outside of here. And so it was awesome to have them be like, you're not the devil, Lauren. You do know what you're talking about. Oh my God. You know what I mean? And we had a great teachable moment. And from then on, they have made sure it builds your credibility with them. And it also lets them trust that incorporating you earlier in the process is the best way to go about it. So it was actually positive.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
If you could have one regulation or type of legislation and put it around AI here in the United States, what would it be? And if so, how do you advise here, us as students, how we can better advocate for such policies?
I mean, that federal privacy law would
Yeah, I was gonna
be
say.
the answer to so much. Like, the scheme, AI, so much of it, particularly in how companies want to use it, deals with the use of data, a lot of it being personally identifiable information. So in the context of marketing, right, people want to know what your preferences are so that we can give you product advertisements that speak to you. But in the process, that means we're mining everything about you. Where are you located? What is your demographic? What is your age? Like, all of those things are things that we want to know in order to target the right advertisement to you. But if you have, and this is a legit thing, you might have a law in California that says you can't do it and a law in Idaho that says you can, and it's ubiquitous, right? It's not like the internet stops at the California border. Like, it's the internet, right? So how do you make a policy? It would solve so many conflicting problems to just have a federal privacy law, in my opinion.
Federal privacy is my soapbox, and I'll stand on it forever.
Yeah.
But the conflict is not only for, like, say, a company trying to figure it out, but it's also for the individual.
Yeah.
And so the federal privacy not only would provide the same protection that, like, our friends in California have because their state made that a priority. Some states do not make it a priority. Other states just get it wrong, Virginia. And so it would actually empower individuals to not make better choices, excuse me, that's not the word I want to use. It would empower individuals to have a better understanding for how their information, how their data is being used for all of these different tools and processes. The moment that we as individuals can start to understand, and this is kind of where advocacy comes into play, right? Understanding what the cookie banner at the bottom of every website means, understanding what, when you are saying, oh yeah, like show me ads, or when you click on your phone, yes, go ahead, you can track me across the different apps, what that might actually mean for you and what that means for the information that you have. People always ask, well, the information's already out there, people already have it, what does it matter? Sure, sign away all of your rights. It's not why it matters to you. You might not care. It matters to people who don't have the same agency and the same understanding about that information. I think as people of color, we tend to understand that a lot more, especially when we think about healthcare instances. And so with a federal privacy law, it would not only, give us a blanket statement across the board for everyone has to obey, no matter where you are in the US, and respect privacy and data rights of individuals, every single individual, that would be perfect. That's where we'd like to start. And for the record, we've seen a few iterations come around about how many years ago now? Time is made up. 5 years ago now, we got really close.
Yeah.
It would have been, about 5-6 years ago, we got really, really close, and still did not make it happen. Now, an administration shift, it's kind of been deprioritized. Another thing that I'll just say, since we're talking about like legislation and regulation, and watching the trend, the word innovation is oftentimes used as a counter argument to some of the more like data privacy and more restrictions on this sort of area. Innovation is not a bad thing per se. However, they use innovation to say everything should be open and free, and these rights don't necessarily matter as much because we want to innovate, we want to be better than, we want to have the first, that sort of thing. So when you're thinking about advocacy and understanding that, be on the lookout for kind of the use of the word innovation.
Yeah, in the sustainability space, you know, poor people are lucrative, which is the worst thing in the world right now. It really, and I hate to say it that way, but like it's true. The ability for people to consent to the use of their data when they are not educated and when they don't have access to the internet and they don't have a law that just says, okay, here's how, that just explains it in like basic terms, that can get abused in the name of we want to help, right? Yes. And then here we come, like with just these transnational, transatlantic transfers of people's personal information under the guise of we want to help and improve, but in the process we are trampling very fundamental rights to me. So
and this is where I'm going to take a little bit of a detour because, you know, I've given up on federal privacy. Like
you can't.
I'm in the full practicality mode, and I've been operating, advising on privacy without a federal privacy law for, well, since 2015 when GDPR came in and CCPA. And one, if I could rub my magic genie lamp and get any wish out of Congress, privacy is not even on the top of my agenda as what terms of what I wish Congress would get their act together on. But where I see a bigger impact that can be held, if we were to focus on just anything, like not be structured by what we've seen in the past or what other people have done, I would liken it more to the rules that were put in place for banks to protect consumers against credit card theft. Yeah. I still remember when like identity theft meant somebody stole your credit card number and they could order anything they want and they could go in and use your credit card number and they'd steal credit card numbers and you would be personally responsible for anything they put on your credit card. And then they passed this big law that said, no, you know what, the banks are going to be responsible. The banks hold control over that number and processing those charges. If there's fraud on that card, the bank needs to stop it, and the way we're going to incentivize that is tell the banks, hey, consumers aren't responsible for any false charges. Your job is to figure out what's false now. And lo and behold, after that, I didn't have any credit card number compromises. And so here, I think there are companies that have monster amounts of resources and data and information and power, smart people solving hard problems, and they do control large swaths of the data for AI, for personal data processing. Because I would imagine if somebody ran the numbers, what percentage of the world's data do you think Microsoft, Amazon, and Google together process? More than 95?
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah. So why do we expect every single individual who's using the internet to protect themselves?
They should have
that's why I'm I think if there were one law, I would put it around like the consumer credit laws about whose job it is to prevent this type of harm, and make it the responsibility of the people processing it. They'll figure a way out. Like they will not figure a way out. Like they'll figure it out.
No, that's I think that's.
And if you give them the guardrails and say you have to figure this out, and you still have to maintain privacy law compliance, they will find a way. We solve hard problems. That's what we do in technology.
It's one of the things and when I say we, I don't mean Hershey. I mean the colloquial we. But it's actually one of the things I think you're spot on about that I like the most about my current job. Like Hershey we do so much to set an example for not misusing the data that we have access to, particularly in the space of cocoa, because we are such a big consumer of cocoa worldwide. We have a responsibility that we take so seriously, and it's really awesome to support that team in particular, in just how serious we take not just abiding by data privacy laws and being compliant, but also setting the standard worldwide for how we should be stewards of this information, how we should be stewards of change, how we should improve and impact positively where we do business. It really, it's probably the most gratifying part of my job. So I agree. I think it is incumbent upon it. Any company that's going to profit has a responsibility to do so responsibly, more so than anybody else.
Okay, I think we're supposed. Do we have time for one more question?
You
or-
got time for one more
Okay.
question.
Does anyone have any more questions?
We don't want to deprive.
No, that's fine. I have one last question for the panelists if no one does. Okay. Well, I feel like because this is a panel about AI in the workplace, and I feel like there's been a lot of discussion recently. I know it circulated around the tech industry, but there was that think piece from, I think his name is Matt Schumer, on basically AI is going to take over the workplace and we should all get our affairs in order. So, I mean, it was a little fear-mongering, but, I mean, there's a lot of discussion that's driven by, like, essays and opinions from sometimes even the CEOs of these companies. You know, I'm just curious to know from your perspective, like, within the next 10 years, you know, where do you see that AI will have, like, biggest impact, and do you think it will take over all of our jobs and we need to start getting our affairs in order, or will it be how we're sort of talking about it right now as a tool to actually help us?
That's a funny one. I just had
It's,
this.
but,
I
I mean,
just
this has
had
been a
this
huge
conversation.
conversation,
Yeah,
at least
it's
like
big.
in my group, in
It's
my
big.
firm,
It's
and
big.
our clients are, it's crazy.
It's definitely a question to bring up at a dinner party.
Yes.
I just had this conversation the other day with someone who felt very differently, and I was staring at this woman aghast because I had no concept of how she even arrived at her decision around. She's like, yes, the machines will replace us, and then like everyone else can live in kumbaya because the machines will do all the things. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was very confused. So that is not my answer. But my actual
vacuum just
yeah, that's so my answer is I do not think it will replace the people, right? The internet happened and everyone was like, oh my goodness, it's a whole
Yeah.
thing, it'll be done. And here we are now using the internet to literally develop a new technology to do new things that could potentially impact different sectors. I think what actually becomes necessary is that we now have to understand what this tool means and use it. Just like when the internet came around, we had to understand what that looked like for jobs, how do we incorporate that, and how do we use that. I'm sure you've all heard it a few different ways, a few different times, but really just understanding AI is going to be key to your job.
Yeah.
Even if you are not using it per se, understanding the data inputs, understanding what cybersecurity, understanding kind of all of the things that we've described here today is going to be essential for the work that you end up doing, be it in the tech sector or not in the tech sector. So that it will be, I think, the most important part. I also think in like 10 years, we're still going to be trying to see which company has the best thing that can do the next thing that can outdo the last thing. I think we're going to continue to kind of be in this race because as we've also, I hopefully made clear, there are going to be gaps and holes and errors that these machines are not perfect. And we as a society cannot just move towards an assumption where we just think that, oh, they'll get it right every time and we no longer need to have people in the loop. So that's where I think it'll be in like 10 years. You'll probably be having similar conversations about different tools.
I think those articles like that, especially any CEO giving that message, is
Yes.
doing a disservice to anyone who is a real CEO in a leadership position because they make one assumption, and that is AI gets better and the rest of us don't.
Correct.
And
That's it.
everybody in this room has a growth mindset. We're here learning. And if you keep learning, you're going to grow with AI. It's not like AI continues and you become stupid. 10 years ago, if you'd ask some kid if they could make $1 million a year tapping their fingernails on a baked good in front of a camera,
Yeah.
they'd think you were crazy. And yet here we are in the influencer world. The world will change, but all of us will change with it.
And I think not to get like weird about it, but it's like, if you think about it in the context of, I don't know, UFOs, since that's like the big thing that everybody's talking about right now, the age of disclosure, there is no like,
Obama told us they were real.
I know,
So,
Obama did say they were real, but there's no
Miss Obama.
sentient being that is a machine, right? Like, all sentient, to Maddie's point, we will evolve right along with it, right? So there is a physical limitation to AI, which is just, it's math. At the end of the day, it's math. It is not actually intelligent. And then on top of that, we are this organic hybrid, AI in its purest form, right, is humanity, because that's what everybody is afraid of, is that AI is going to replace humanity. So if you think of us as the perfect AI, we will get better than this subset of us, right? So in my mind, 10 years from now is a very symbiotic existence with AI. It's like Iron Man and Jarvis. Like, you have your own little personal assistant.
Yes.
I'm partial to the superhero, the black girl who's now the follow-up to Iron
Zuri.
Man. Yes, Zuri. I think everybody has, like, Zuri has her AI in the form of her best friend, and you just, that's who runs around with you and gives you.
Wrong
Yeah.
one, but yes.
Yeah, but yes, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Ironheart.
Ironheart,
I
thank
was
you.
like,
Thank
wrong
you.
one.
Thank you. Yes,
Of course,
Iron-
Scott's the one who knows that.
obviously it was Scott. I should have asked you. I'm sorry. But Ironheart, if you haven't checked it out, it's one of my favorite shows I watch with my sons. Because I'm all about girl power. But she is the next generation of Iron Man. And she's got her own AI in the form of her best friend, and they just do all the things. And I think that's where it's all headed, is that you'll have your own personal assistant in the form of an AI bot that can help you do things faster. Like,
But right now, my robot vacuum cleaner still gets stuck under the
I think
coffee
it
table.
sucks. Yeah,
Same.
like,
So
mine is
like,
not good.
We're not there yet. That's nothing
We're
else.
not there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I feel like we also have a lot more control than we think. Like, if we decide as a society we don't want these machines to take over, they will not. Like, we control that. So, I don't know. We could have a whole panel on that. But I hope everyone give a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you.